Welcome to this deep dive.
Okay.
And today we're going to be exploring a rather surprising concept,
Okay.
the power of fearlessness.
Okay.
And we're getting this knowledge from a pretty unique source.
Okay.
The 50th Law, a book co-written by,
Anyway.
wait for it,
Yep.
rapper 50 Cent
Okay.
and author Robert Greene.
Interesting combination.
Now you might be thinking, what can a rapper's autobiography
Right.
possibly teach me about history or self-improvement?
Sure.
Well, get ready for a fascinating journey.
What's intriguing about this book is it doesn't fit neatly
Okay.
into a typical self-help genre.
Okay.
It weaves 50 Cent's personal experiences growing up on the streets,
Yeah.
with historical analysis drawing some pretty thought-provoking parallels
I see.
to figures like Napoleon, Malcolm X,
Wow.
even FDR.
Okay, so let's dive into this idea of fear.
Sure.
The book talks about how the nature of fear has evolved over time.
It's a fascinating shift.
Yeah.
Think about it. Our ancestors faced very real,
Right.
very physical threats.
Yeah.
Wild animals, starvation, tribal warfare.
Yeah.
For them, fear was a survival mechanism,
Right.
immediate response to a tangible danger.
Right.
But for us, those primal life or death fears have largely been replaced by something much more abstract.
So instead of running from saber-toothed tigers,
Right.
we're stressing about deadlines,
Yeah.
social media, and what people think of us.
Exactly.
It's almost like our fears have become more psychological, more internalized.
Exactly. And the book argues that this shift has been,
Okay.
to some extent, manipulated.
Okay.
Think about the 2/3/4/7 news cycle.
Yeah.
The constant barrage of negative headlines.
Right.
Statistically, we're living in one of the safest periods in human history, but we're bombarded with messages that make us feel anxious and afraid.
So it's like the media is profiting off of our fear, but what can we do about it?
This is where the 50th Law gets really interesting.
Okay.
It introduces this idea of the fearless type.
Okay.
And it's not about being some kind of superhero
Right.
who never feels fear.
Right. Yeah.
It's about understanding fear, confronting it, and using it as fuel to move forward.
So it's more about mastering fear
Precisely.
than eliminating it.
The book gives a fantastic anecdote about Napoleon.
Okay.
When his army was preparing to cross the Alps,
Uh-huh.
his generals told him it was impossible.
Yeah.
The terrain was too treacherous,
Right.
but Napoleon simply declared, "There shall be no Alps."
Wow.
For his army.
Wow.
He refused to let fear dictate his actions
Right.
and pushed forward with incredible determination.
Wow. What a powerful example of willpower.
Yeah.
Trumping perceived obstacles.
Yeah.
But Napoleon was a military genius leading armies into battle.
Right.
How does this fearless type apply to someone like 50 Cent,
Uh-huh.
growing up in a completely different environment?
That's where the book's analysis gets really insightful.
Okay.
It contrasts Napoleon's boldness
Yeah.
with 50 Cent's experience growing up
Mm-hmm.
in a neighborhood riddled with violence.
Right.
For him, fear wasn't something to conquer on a battlefield.
Right.
It was a constant presence on the streets.
Yeah.
He learned to mask his fear,
Uh-huh.
to project an aura of fearlessness
Right.
as a means of survival.
So in a way, he used fear to overcome fear. He
Yeah.
turned it into a tool, a weapon even.
Yeah.
But does this mean that fearlessness is only relevant in extreme situations?
That's what's so compelling about the book's argument.
Okay.
It highlights figures from all walks of life.
Okay.
Philosophers like Socrates, business tycoons like Vanderbilt, political leaders like Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
The point is, this fearless type
Yeah.
isn't limited to certain individuals or
That-
specific contexts.
Right.
It's a quality that transcends time and circumstance.
So what you're saying is that this fearless spirit is something we can all cultivate,
Exactly.
regardless of our background or profession. But how do we actually do that?
That's where 50 Cent's personal journey comes in.
Okay.
The book delves into his transition
Yeah.
from street hustler to successful rapper and entrepreneur.
Right.
And it was a journey marked by profound challenges,
Uh-huh.
including a life-altering event
Yeah.
that would shape his entire philosophy.
You're talking about his near-fatal shooting in 2000, right?
Absolutely.
That must have been a turning point for him.
Imagine being shot 9 times,
Yeah.
facing your own mortality. That's an experience that forces you to reevaluate everything.
Right.
And for 50 Cent, it intensified his drive to escape the streets and achieve success on his own terms.
So how did this experience translate into the 50th Law? How does someone go from surviving a near-death experience to formulating a philosophy of power?
That's the brilliance of this book.
Okay.
It takes these raw lived experiences and distills them into a set of principles that anyone can apply.
I see.
The 50th Law argues that true power lies in controlling your mindset.
Okay.
In the face of any event, no matter how challenging or traumatic. It's about recognizing that a fearless attitude doesn't magically eliminate problems. Instead, it expands your control over how you respond to them.
So it's less about avoiding hardship and more about transforming adversity into fuel for growth.
Exactly. And this concept resonates especially strongly with entrepreneurs. Think about the constant uncertainty, the risks involved in starting and running a business. The 50th Law offers a framework for navigating that uncertainty, for turning obstacles into opportunities.
So we've established that fearlessness is a mindset,
Yeah.
a way of approaching challenges. But how does this translate into practical advice?
Well, the book distills these strategies
Okay.
from the lives of the fearless individuals we've been discussing. It's like a playbook for overcoming fear and achieving success.
Okay.
Drawn from history biography
Yeah.
and 50 Cent's own hard-won wisdom.
So it's a blend of ancient wisdom and modern street smarts.
Exactly.
I'm definitely intrigued.
Okay.
Let's unpack some of these strategies.
Okay.
What's the first step on this path to fearlessness?
The first step, and this might sound counterintuitive, is to embrace reality.
Embrace reality?
Yeah.
But isn't that the opposite of what most self-help books advise?
Yeah.
Don't they usually tell you to visualize success? To focus on the positive?
There's a difference between positive thinking and burying your head in the sand.
Right.
The 50th Law encourages you to see the world clearly.
Okay.
Both the good and the bad.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging the challenges you face, the obstacles in your path, without sugarcoating them.
So instead of trying to wish away problems, you're facing them head on.
Yeah.
I can see how that ties into fearlessness.
Exactly.
It takes courage to confront the harsh realities of life.
The book uses a powerful analogy from Malcolm X, who said you have to dig to the roots of a problem to truly understand it. It's not about dwelling on negativity, but about getting a clear and honest assessment of your situation.
So once you've embraced reality, what's the next step?
The book calls it cultivating calculated momentum. It's about creating a flow in your life across different areas. Mental, emotional, cultural, social. It's about constantly pushing yourself, expanding your horizons, and seeking new challenges.
That sounds a lot like the concept of flow state. It's popular in productivity circles. That feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity where time seems to disappear.
There are definitely some similarities. But calculated momentum is more about the long game. It's about creating a sustained sense of forward motion in your life. Constantly learning, growing, and evolving.
Can you give me an example of what this looks like in practice?
Think about Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't just a brilliant painter. He was also a sculptor. An inventor, an architect, a scientist.
Wow.
He constantly moved between disciplines, feeding his curiosity and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. That's calculated momentum in action.
Or someone like Miles Davis, who was constantly reinventing his music, exploring new sounds, and pushing the limits of jazz. He never allowed himself to become stagnant or complacent.
And this concept is highly relevant in today's rapidly changing world. It's about embracing adaptability, being willing to learn new skills, and constantly seeking ways to improve and evolve.
So far, we've talked about embracing reality and cultivating momentum. What other strategies does the 50th Law offer?
The next one might surprise you. It's called strategic aggression.
Strategic aggression?
Yeah.
That sounds a little intense.
It can be. But the book argues that there are times when boldness, even a bit of manipulation or force, is necessary to achieve your goals.
So it's not about being aggressive for the sake of it, but about using it strategically as a calculated move.
Think about FDR during the Great Depression. He faced immense opposition from his political rivals. But he was willing to use his power and influence to push through his agenda, even if it meant ruffling some feathers.
So it's about knowing when to be bad.
Right.
In order to achieve a greater good.
Exactly.
But doesn't this contradict the earlier advice about embracing vulnerability and connection?
It's all about balance.
Okay.
There are times when you need to assert yourself,
Yeah.
to be decisive and take charge.
Right.
And there are times when collaboration and empathy are more effective. The 50th law emphasizes the importance of reading the situation.
Right.
And adapting your approach accordingly.
Okay, so we've covered embracing reality, cultivating momentum, and strategic aggression.
Right.
What's next on this path to fearlessness?
The next strategy is all about self-reliance.
Self-reliance.
Yes.
That seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of self-improvement philosophies.
It's a fundamental principle for a reason.
Right.
The 50th law stresses the importance of owning yourself.
Okay.
Your skills, your decisions, your destiny.
Okay.
It's about building independence and not relying on others to define your worth or validate your success.
They give a pretty extreme example in the book, right?
Yes, they do.
Reuben Hurricane Carter, who was wrongfully imprisoned for years.
His story is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Despite facing unimaginable injustice.
Right.
Carter refused to be broken by the system. He maintained his dignity, his self-reliance, even within the confines of prison.
So even in the face of such adversity, he found a way to stay true to himself.
Exactly.
That's a powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit.
And while his situation was extraordinary,
right,
the principle of self-reliance applies to all of us.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that inner strength, that unwavering belief in yourself, even when the world throws its worst at you.
So we've talked about embracing reality, cultivating momentum, strategic aggression, and self-reliance.
Right.
Are there any other key strategies outlined in the 50th law?
The next one focuses on the importance of mastery.
Mastery.
Yeah.
So it's not about shortcuts.
Not at all.
Or overnight success.
The 50th law emphasizes the value of dedication, persistence, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. It's about honing your craft, expanding your knowledge, and constantly seeking ways to improve.
The book contrasts this with the impatience of many of 50 Cent's peers, right?
Yeah.
They were looking for quick wins, easy money.
Right.
But that rarely leads to lasting success.
Exactly. Think about Isaac Newton during the plague years.
Okay.
While others were paralyzed by fear and uncertainty, he used that time to make groundbreaking discoveries.
Wow.
In mathematics, physics, and optics.
Wow.
His intense focus and dedication led to some of the most important scientific breakthroughs in history.
It's a powerful reminder that true mastery takes time, effort, and an unwavering commitment to your goals.
Absolutely.
But doesn't this idea of mastery seem to contradict the earlier concept of calculated momentum? If you're so focused on one area, how can you be constantly expanding and evolving?
It's not about limiting yourself to one narrow field. Mastery is about depth. About developing a deep understanding of your chosen craft. But it doesn't have to come at the expense of breadth. In fact, the more you learn and grow in one area, the more those insights can inform and enrich other areas of your life.
So it's about finding a balance.
Exactly.
Between specialization and exploration.
Right.
Between depth and breadth.
And this idea of mastery extends beyond technical skills. It's also about mastering your emotions, your reactions, your mindset. It's about cultivating that unshakable inner strength that allows you to weather any storm.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Well, thank you.
We've covered so much ground.
We have.
From embracing reality to cultivating mastery. But there's one fear that we haven't touched on yet. One that's often considered the ultimate challenge. The fear of death. Does the 50th law offer any guidance?
It absolutely does. On how to deal with this primal fear.
And it approaches this topic with a surprising blend of Stoic philosophy and 50 Cent's own personal experiences. Stoicism, that's a philosophy that dates back to ancient Greece. How does that connect with a modern-day rapper?
That's what makes this book so fascinating. It draws from a wide range of sources, weaving together seemingly disparate threads into a cohesive tapestry of wisdom. The 50th law delves into the teachings of Seneca, a Roman Stoic philosopher who wrote extensively about overcoming the fear of death.
Okay, so how does Stoicism help us deal with our mortality?
The Stoics believed that death is a natural part of life, something that we should accept rather than fear.
Right.
They emphasize the importance of focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, our responses, and letting go of what we can't.
So it's about accepting the inevitable and choosing to focus on living a meaningful life in the present moment.
And this is where 50 Cent's own experience comes in.
Okay.
Remember, he stared death in the face after his shooting.
Right.
And that experience, while traumatic, gave him a new perspective on life.
It's like he went through a crucible, a trial by fire, that forged a new level of resilience and fearlessness within him.
Precisely by confronting his own mortality.
Right.
He was able to let go of a lot of the fears that had held him back before. He realized that life is precious.
Yeah.
That time is a gift.
Right.
And that we shouldn't waste it on things that don't truly matter.
So instead of being paralyzed by the fear of death, he used it as fuel to live more boldly and authentically.
Exactly.
But is there something unique about 50 Cent's experience?
That's the beauty of the 50th Law.
Okay.
It's not just about one man's journey.
Right.
It's about tapping into a universal human experience.
Okay.
We all grapple with the fear of death, whether we consciously acknowledge it or not.
Right.
And the book offers a powerful framework for understanding and overcoming this fear.
So it's about reframing our relationship with death.
Exactly.
Not as something to be dreaded.
Right.
But as a natural part of life that can actually help us live more fully in the present.
Exactly. And this ties into a fascinating concept.
Okay.
That the book explores the sublime.
The sublime.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a term that describes those moments that evoke awe and wonder. That give us a glimpse of something vast and mysterious beyond our everyday experience.
Okay.
Think about standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Witnessing a breathtaking sunset.
Right.
Or listening to a piece of music that moves you to your core.
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see the connection.
Okay.
These experiences take us outside of ourselves, beyond our ego and our fears. They remind us that we're part of something much larger and more magnificent than our individual lives.
And the book argues that these encounters with the sublime can actually help us transcend our fear of death.
Can you give me an example of how this works?
Think about Ernest Hemingway's near-death experience. He was gored by a bull during a bullfight in Spain.
Oh, wow.
And the experience had a profound impact on his writing.
Okay.
He started exploring themes of mortality, courage, and the human condition with even greater depth and intensity.
So it's like his brush with death awakened a new level of awareness, a deeper understanding of life's fragility and preciousness.
The book highlights other examples.
Okay.
Like the explorer Ernest Shackleton's harrowing journey through Antarctica, facing unimaginable hardship and the constant threat of death.
Right.
Shackleton and his crew experienced moments of awe and wonder that transcended their fear.
Wow.
They saw the beauty and power of nature in its rawest form.
Right.
And it gave them the strength to keep going.
It's like those intense experiences, those brushes with the sublime shifted their perspective and helped them find courage and meaning in the face of extreme adversity.
The 50th Law argues that we can all access these experiences of the sublime, even in our everyday lives. It's about being present, being aware, and noticing the beauty and wonder that surrounds us.
So instead of getting caught up in our anxieties and fears, we can choose to focus on the things that inspire awe and gratitude.
Exactly. And by cultivating this sense of awe, we can begin to shift our relationship with death.
Right.
Instead of seeing it as an ending, we can embrace it as a natural part of life, a transition into something unknown and potentially even more wondrous.
This has been such a thought-provoking discussion.
Thank you.
We've covered so much ground, from the evolution of fear to the power of the sublime.
We have.
But I'm still grappling with this idea of unlearning fear. Is that really possible? Can we truly free ourselves from the grip of fear?
Yeah.
Especially those deep-seated fears that have been with us for years, maybe even decades.
That's a question that each of us must grapple with individually.
Right.
The 50th Law offers a roadmap, a set of principles and strategies, but the journey is ultimately ours to take.
So it's less about eradicating fear completely and more about transforming our relationship with it. Learning to dance with it.
Yes.
To use it as fuel for growth and transformation.
Exactly. And the first step on that journey is awareness.
Okay.
What are your fears? Where do they come from?
Right.
How do they hold you back?
Once you've identified your fears,
right,
then you can start to challenge them, to question their validity, and to explore new ways of responding to them.
Precisely. And that's where the strategies we've discussed come into play.
Right.
Embracing reality, cultivating momentum, strategic aggression, self-reliance, mastery.
Yeah.
These are all tools
right.
that you can use to navigate the challenges of life.
Right.
And to move forward with courage and purpose.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Well, I'm glad.
But before we wrap up,
okay,
there's one more concept from the 50th law that I'd like to explore.
Okay.
The book talks about the importance of intense connection.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That's a great question.
And how does it fit into this overall philosophy of fearlessness?
It's a concept that's particularly relevant in today's world.
Okay.
Where we're often more connected digitally than we are in person.
Right.
Intense connection is about breaking down the barriers that separate us from others, from the world around us, and even from ourselves.
So it's about building deeper, more meaningful relationships.
It's more than that.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a sense of empathy, of understanding of shared humanity. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected, that our actions and choices have ripple effects that extend far beyond ourselves.
The book uses Jane Goodall as a powerful example, right?
Yes, they do.
Her groundbreaking research with chimpanzees stemmed from her willingness to immerse herself in their world, to connect with them on a deep and personal level.
Exactly. Goodall had to let go of her preconceived notions, her human-centric biases, and truly meet these chimpanzees on their own terms. And in doing so, she made groundbreaking discoveries that transformed our understanding of these animals and their place in the natural world.
It's a powerful reminder that true connection requires humility, curiosity, and a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones.
Yes.
But how does this concept of intense connection relate to fearlessness?
Fear often isolates us.
Okay.
It makes us withdraw. To build walls around ourselves, to protect ourselves from perceived threats. But connection is the antidote to fear. When we connect with others, when we share our stories, when we build bridges of empathy and understanding, we begin to erode the foundations of fear.
So it's about recognizing that we're not alone in our struggles, that we all face challenges and fears, and that by sharing our experiences and supporting each other, we can find the strength to overcome those fears.
Exactly.
And live more fulfilling lives.
Precisely. And this principle applies to all areas of life. Business relationships, even politics.
Wow.
The ability to connect with others, to understand their perspectives, to build bridges of empathy and collaboration. These are essential skills for navigating the complexities of the modern world.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
We've gone from primal fears to the fear of death. From historical figures to practical strategies. And we've explored some pretty profound concepts along the way.
We have.
But I'm curious what stands out to you as the most important takeaway from the 50th law.
For me, it's the idea that fearlessness is not an innate quality that some people have and others don't. It's a skill, a mindset, a practice that we can all cultivate. And while the 50th law draws heavily from 50 Cent's personal experiences, it's ultimately a universal message.
It's a message that resonates across cultures, across time periods, across all walks of life. We all face challenges. We all experience fear. But we also have the power to choose how we respond to those fears.
And the 50th law offers a compelling blueprint for transforming fear into fuel for growth. For turning obstacles into opportunities, and for living a life that is both bold and meaningful.
Well, this has been an incredible journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
We've covered so much ground today, exploring the depths of the 50th law.
We have.
And uncovering some really thought-provoking insights.
A lot to think about.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. If fear is something we learn, can we also unlearn it?
Interesting question.
And what might be possible in our lives if we did?
That's a powerful question to ponder, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that we have more agency over our fears than we might realize.
Right.
If fear is learned, maybe it can be unlearned or at least reframed.
Okay.
Think about it this way. We teach children to fear certain things.
Right.
Hot stoves, strangers, certain animals.
Right.
But those fears are instilled for their safety, to protect them from harm.
Right.
As we grow older, many of those early fears become less relevant, even irrational.
Right.
But we often carry them with us subconsciously.
Yeah.
What if we could consciously choose to release those outdated fears?
Okay.
To make space for new perspectives and possibilities.
It's like upgrading your operating system.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the old fear-based programming that no longer serves you.
Right.
And installing a new, more empowering set of beliefs.
And that's what the 50th Law ultimately invites us to do.
Oh.
To rewrite the narrative of fear that we've been carrying with us.
Right.
To challenge those limiting beliefs that hold us back. And to embrace a new way of being in the world.
So it's not just about conquering fear, it's about transforming it, using it as a catalyst for growth and self-discovery.
Exactly.
But how do we actually begin this process of unlearning fear?
Yeah.
It seems like such a daunting task.
It can feel overwhelming.
Right.
Especially when we're dealing with deeply ingrained fears that have been with us for a long time.
Right.
But remember, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Start by simply noticing your fears, observing them without judgment.
Right.
Pay attention to the physical sensations, the thoughts, the behaviors that accompany those fears.
So it's about becoming a curious observer of our own internal landscape.
Exactly.
Exploring our fears with the same sense of curiosity and open-mindedness that Jane Goodall brought to her study of chimpanzees.
Exactly. And as you become more aware of your fears, you can start to question their validity.
Okay.
Are these fears based on real present danger?
Yeah.
Or are they remnants of past experiences, outdated beliefs, or societal conditioning?
And once you've identified the root of those fears, you can start to challenge them.
Yeah.
To explore new ways of thinking and responding.
Exactly.
The strategies we discussed earlier, embracing reality, cultivating momentum, strategic aggression, self-reliance, mastery, and intense connection.
Yes.
These can all be powerful tools for dismantling those fear-based barriers.
Exactly.
And stepping into a more empowered way of being.
And remember, unlearning fear is not a one-time event.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process.
Right.
There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt.
Yeah.
But the key is to keep moving forward.
Right.
To keep challenging those old patterns and beliefs. And to keep expanding your capacity for courage and resilience.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the evolution of fear, the power of the sublime, the strategies for achieving fearlessness, and even the possibility of unlearning fear. And while the 50th Law is a complex and multi-layered work, I think the core message is one of empowerment.
I agree.
It's about recognizing that we have more agency over our fears than we might realize.
Yes.
And that by embracing the principles outlined in the book, we can transform fear into a catalyst for growth. For creativity and for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
The 50th Law is a call to action. An invitation to step outside of our comfort zones, to challenge our limiting beliefs, and to embrace the power of fearlessness in all areas of our lives.
So if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to explore the 50th Law for yourself.
Absolutely.
You might just discover that the journey of unlearning fear is one of the most rewarding adventures you'll ever embark on.
And remember, you don't have to go it alone. Reach out to others. Share your experiences. Build a support system of people who are also on this path of growth and transformation. We're all in this together. And by supporting each other, we can create a world where fearlessness is not the exception, but the norm.
What a powerful thought to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 50th Law.
My pleasure.
We hope it's inspired you to think differently about fear. And to embrace the possibilities that lie beyond it. Power to choose, how we respond to those fears.
And the 50th Law offers a compelling blueprint. For transforming fear into fuel for growth. For turning obstacles into opportunities. And for living a life that is both bold and meaningful.
Well, this has been an incredible journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
We've covered so much ground today, exploring the depths of the 50th law and uncovering some really thought-provoking insights.
A lot to think about.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
Okay.
If fear is something we learn, can we also unlearn it?
Interesting question.
And what might be possible in our lives if we did?
That's a powerful question to ponder, isn't it? It suggests that we have more agency over our fears than we might realize. If fear is learned, maybe it can be unlearned or at least reframed.
It's like upgrading your operating system, getting rid of the old fear-based programming that no longer serves you and installing a new, more empowering set of beliefs.
Exactly. And that's what the 50th law ultimately invites us to do, to rewrite the narrative of fear that we've been carrying with us, to challenge those limiting beliefs that hold us back, and to embrace a new way of being in the world.
So it's not just about conquering fear. It's about transforming it, using it as a catalyst for growth and self-discovery. But how do we actually begin this process of unlearning fear? It seems like such a daunting task.
It can feel overwhelming, especially when we're dealing with deeply ingrained fears that have been with us for a long time. But remember, the first step is awareness. Start by simply noticing your fears, observing them without judgment. Pay attention to the physical sensations, the thoughts, the behaviors that accompany those fears.
So it's about becoming a curious observer of our own internal landscape, exploring our fears with the same sense of curiosity and open-mindedness that Jane Goodall brought to her study of chimpanzees.
Exactly. And as you become more aware of your fears, you can start to question their validity. Are these fears based on real present danger? Or are they remnants of past experiences, outdated beliefs, or societal conditioning?
And once you've identified the root of those fears, you can start to challenge them to explore new ways of thinking and responding to the strategies we discussed earlier, embracing reality, cultivating momentum, strategic aggression, self-reliance, mastery, and intense connection. These can all be powerful tools for dismantling those fear-based barriers and stepping into a more empowered way of being.
Exactly. And remember, unlearning fear is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. There will be setbacks. There will be moments of doubt. But the key is to keep moving forward, to keep challenging those old patterns and beliefs, and to keep expanding your capacity for courage and resilience.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the evolution of fear, the power of the sublime, the strategies for achieving fearlessness, and even the possibility of unlearning fear. And while the 50th law is a complex and multi-layered work, I think the core message is one of empowerment. It's about recognizing that we have more agency over our fears than we might realize, and that by embracing the principles outlined in the book, we can transform fear into a catalyst for growth, for creativity, and for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
I couldn't agree more. The 50th law is a call to action, an invitation to step outside of our comfort zones, to challenge our limiting beliefs, and to embrace the power of fearlessness in all areas of our lives.
So if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to explore the 50th law for yourself. You might just discover that the journey of unlearning fear is one of the most rewarding adventures you'll ever embark on.
And remember, you don't have to go it alone. Reach out to others, share your experiences, build a support system of people who are also on this path of growth and transformation. We're all in this together, and by supporting each other, we can create a world where fearlessness is not the exception, but the norm.
What a powerful thought to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 50th law. We hope it's inspired you to think differently about fear and to embrace the possibilities that lie beyond it.